Hello, I'm Charlie Brooker and you're watching Gameswipe, a programme all about video games. Video games. Bleeping, blooping, masturbatory aids for emotionally crippled social outcasts. Probably male outcasts, probably physically repugnant and sexually inexperienced, probably frightened of the real world, probably standing here on this very spot saying these very words to camera right now. Probably me. Basically, video games are for losers like me, apparently. Yeah, games have a bit of an image problem. It doesn't help that you rarely see games on TV, and when you do, they're often being discussed in searingly negative terms.
In Grand Theft Auto, your son, or your husband, or your boyfriend, or whoever, can hire a prostitute, have sex with her, and then beat her to death with a baseball bat.
Ever since the primitive early days of video gaming, TV has never really known how to convey the white-hot electronic thrill of the pixelated realm.
Here's a brand new idea from the United States which can turn your television set into a game that two can play. All you have to do is, first of all, to switch it off, unplug the aerial, plug in the electronic game simulator, switch on the set again, and now who's for tennis? Play. 15 love.
Christmas looks fun round your house.
That was my point. 30 love. Again?
Games steadily grew in complexity, first with eerie spectral shooters like Space Invaders, then with colourful characters like Pac-Man. But they were rarely seen on TV except in cheery 80s sitcom-style commercials for exciting-looking games starring familiar, albeit incongruous faces.
It's my Atari, and it's my turn to play! Yes, because I'm winning. Beginner's luck! I suppose it was luck I beat you at Space Invaders. Defender, Yar's Revenge. Some of us, Eric, are just that little bit quicker, sharper.
When it wasn't accepting the mucky advertising dollar, however, TV was treating games with disapproving paternal disdain.
Most games are developed from just a few classic themes. There's monster games like this one, where you run around bumping off critters or swallowing giant cherries. And there's the Space Invader theme, where you shoot at moving fleets of hostile aliens. Fairly boring. And then there's the more recent sports games. Well, sports games to me are perhaps the most appalling use of computers.
Christ, if you think that's an appalling use of computers, you don't want to look at my hard drive. British TV's disinterest in games throughout the 80s was particularly unfair, considering there was a renaissance of homebrew programming going on. Thanks to the availability of cheap, easy-to-use computers like the ZX Spectrum here, a generation of youngsters started programming quirky games with a distinctively British sense of humour. Titles like the Grange Hill-em-up School Days, in which you played a naughty boy, or the Python-esque platform game Manic Miner, or the groundbreaking 3D Explorathon Night Law. By the 90s, games had become so popular TV couldn't ignore them, and shows like Games Master thrilled millions with its heady blend of gladiatorial gaming combat and celebrity cameos. And charming sequences in which nervous Kiddywinks begged Sir Patrick Moore's Games Master for assistance in the manner of Oliver Twist anxiously requesting additional gruel.
Next.
Hello, Games Master.
Oh, just get on with your question, please, young man.
On European Club Soccer on the Mega Drive, I can't get enough power into my kicks. What should I be doing?
The success of Games Master led to similar programmes like Games World on Sky, a sort of cheap spin-off in which people had to take on these ridiculously tough videators. Here we see Dave the Game's Animal Perry taking on Big Boy Barry in a game of Street Fighter 2, very much my generation's equivalent of John Lennon and Bob Dylan jamming together in Abbey Road Studios.
Let's play.
Well, once again, Barry over on the right playing Chun-Li, and Dave is over on the left with Giles.
Yeah, my generation was a bit stupid, really.
Big Boy Barry!
Hey!
Still, if TV shows featuring commercially available games weren't brilliant, shows featuring completely made-up games were even worse. Take the scarcely remembered Cyberzone, in which Craig Charles looked on as various contestants battled in unconvincing, clunky, tedious and baffling virtual reality games controlled by walking on the spot like you really needed a piss. It wasn't a hit. Now, in 2009, even as Pixel Land grows bigger, more exciting and more inventive with each passing nanosecond, games are rarely covered on mainstream TV at all, and when they are, there's still that same degree of snooty disapproval.
I hate computer. I've never played computer games before, and hopefully we'll never play them again.
Well, I think games don't get their due at their best. They're immersive, amusing, entertaining and downright joyful. In a relatively short space of time, they've evolved to become incredibly sophisticated. Arguably the first video game was this surprisingly smooth tennis sim created on an oscilloscope in an American laboratory in 1958. Take a look at the equivalent contemporary tennis game, something like Virtua Tennis 2009 here, and you can see just how far video games have come. Today there's a bewildering variety of different genres too. There are as many types of video game as there are pebbles on the beach. In fact, there's even a game where you count pebbles on the beach, or there would be if I wasn't lying. What a liar I am. Anyway, to the uninitiated, the different category titles can seem baffling, whereas dweebs like me just like hearing them being discussed. That's why we're going to run through them, starting with this one.
Platformer, a game in which a player-controlled character jumps between suspended platforms in order to reach a goal.
OK, easy start. Everyone knows what a platform game is, apart from maybe dead people. Arguably, the first platform game was Nintendo's Donkey Kong in 1982, in which Mario, known then only as Jumpman, had to jump over barrels and prance between girders in order to impress a lady. At their best, trad platform games were essentially little living cartoons, sometimes explicitly so, as in Tiny Toon Adventures here, or Ken-chan and Kato-chan, a weirdly scatological title for the PC Engine with an odd emphasis on blowing off and turds and toilets and farts. Platformers have also been a good launchpad for characters such as Sonic the Hedgehog, seen here rolling at high speed through a jolly cartoon world, just like real hedgehogs don't. But it's Mario who's the undisputed king bitch in Platform Prison, appearing in addictive, brilliantly designed games like Super Mario Bros. 1 and 3, the groundbreaking Super Mario 64, which brought the third dimension to platform games with stunning confidence, and most recently the downright psychedelic Super Mario Galaxy titles.
Shoot 'em up, a game in which the player avoids attacks while shooting enemies, usually in 2 dimensions.
Shoot 'em ups, or shmups for short, range from the famous Spartan killing grounds of Space Invaders to the cartoonish idiocy of Parodius. Shoot 'em ups aren't as big as they used to be, although they still have a hardcore following amongst masochistic maniacs who actively enjoy dipping into titles like Perfect Cherry Blossom, which sort of resembles a firework display being sick. At any rate, shoot 'em ups are not to be confused with the following.
First-person shooter, a 3D weapon-based combat game viewed from the protagonist's vantage point.
Yes, shooting people in the face is something that never truly loses its magic. The earliest first-person games for the home were basic flick-screen affairs such as 3D Monster Maze on the ZX81, the first 3D game for any home computer, and it was surprisingly frightening despite its Spartan visuals and complete lack of sound. And it was scary partly because at the time, seeing through the eyes of your character was a total novelty. Consequently, this man really believes he is in the maze, that the dinosaur really is after him. Don't you? I'm a dinosaur, you wuss! Of course, the other thing that made 3D Monster Maze scary is that, unlike me, Pussy Boy here doesn't have a gun to defend himself with. No, he'd have to wait at least 10 years for that until the Nazis invaded. Suck it. No, don't. Yes, skip forward a decade and Wolfenstein 3D turns up on the PC. It was groundbreaking in its day for its fast-paced, dark humour and extreme violence, including a bit where you got to kill Hitler. Of course, now it's so flipping basic you can get it on the iPhone, where ironically it's so engrossing you won't notice people sneaking up behind you and shooting you in the head. But if Wolfenstein was the pioneer, the following year Doom became the populariser. It placed the action in a unique gothic sci-fi environment, and it was gorier, and most importantly of all, it had atmosphere. It may look like a simple bang-bang shooty affair, but in fact, above all, Doom was terrifying, like a horror movie. From there on in, a torrent of first-person shooters erupted, including stone-cold classics like GoldenEye and the sprawling sci-fi loveliness of the Halo series. Today's gamer has hundreds of first-person shooters to choose from, including a recent remake of the very first one. Yes, welcome to Wolfenstein 2009, or Willkommen aus Wolfenstein 2009, as the Nazis would say. I'm a tit. It's set in 1943, and you play an American hero called B.J. Blazkowicz, although you might as well be a bit of rag on a stick for all the difference it makes. The setup is pretty standard stuff for a first-person shooter. You've got some vaguely authentic World War II weapons, and you set about unrelentingly slaughtering members of the Third Reich without a care for their families, although I like to spice things up by imagining their backstories. This is Kurt, he's a dad of 3. That's Christmas for your kids. This is Henning, he's got a sweetheart back home who's going to be missing him. It's alright, he's a Nazi.